Well, good afternoon. Did you enjoy that keynote this morning? I've got to hear some love, really, because we worked on that. I'm Ted Johnson, by the way. My colleague John was backstage doing the kind of the ghost driving. It's really, you got to get him after this and get a story about the keynotes. It's a lot of fun. We're here to talk more in depth today about IE9, and very happy to do so. We're going to go obviously deep into two of the areas. We're going to go deep into the DOM and the same markup programming, and go deep into the graphics. So we hope to do. A little bit about myself. I've been with the IE team for only about 18 months. I joined specifically to work on the graphics portion of IE9, and happy to say that a lot of what you saw this morning was the work of my extended team in IE. So that was fun. Oh, wow, cool. Thanks a lot. Oh, I won't embarrass you right now, Doug, but don't miss Doug's session tomorrow on SVG. Before that, I worked on Visio. Before that, I worked on Aldus PageMaker and actually started coding Windows graphics in 1985. So some of you may have only been 2 or 3 years old, John. Others of you may not have been born yet, but I was actually coding on Windows back in those days. So with that, let's just jump in. Again, not only the objectives for our presentation today, but the objectives for the entire IE9 release, or the IE9 platform, I should say, are around the 3 things, and you heard Dean talk about them this morning. Interoperable HTML5 markup, hugely important to us. We understand the pain web developers go through, kind of coding for one browser, then making it work in the others, or one other one in particular, and we kind of want to get rid of that pain. And of course, I'm particularly excited about the graphics and media work we've done and the GPU power that we bring to that, because as Dean said, I mean, we believe HTML5 really demands a high-performance graphics system. The other area of focus, and you also saw this in Dean's keynote, and there's another session later on today specifically on high performance. And that's really across the board high performance. JavaScript is a part of that, but page layout performance and page display performance, as again you saw this morning, all very important parts. We think these are the aspects that make up HTML5. Well, let me for a minute talk about a browser decomposed. Many of you in this audience probably know that, but when I joined the team 18 months ago, the first thing I had to do, and being an old Visio guy, I would do it graphically, is actually decompose the browser into its main systems. Of course, you get the streams off the net generally. They could be HTML. Of course, you get the CSS, the script, could be XHTML, now could be SVG. And all of those need to be parsed into some representation. Script basically goes over to the script parser or compiler system now. And the rest of the things go into some form of object model. The SVG, CSS, HTML, and XHTML go into the document object model, which is very much the core of the browser. When we're talking today, the programming that you generally do in JavaScript is in fact against the DOM. The script in general edits the DOM. The DOM fires events that go back into the script. From there, though, what you get on the screen actually is not directly generated out of the DOM. It's laid out. And if you can imagine, especially these days with CSS layout, the order of things in the DOM doesn't always match the appearance of the things on the screen very directly. So layout is a process that goes through and creates the display tree, which is really the XY positioning of all the elements on the screen. And then that, of course, is what makes the display. So when I talk about the 3 very important high-performance systems, script is one of them. That layout is a very important system, and display is the other piece that all up are going to affect your browser performance. We don't have anything specific to show about layout, but it is an area we continue to work on in IE9 to improve performance. Display is the GPU stuff we saw this morning. Also, I'm kind of an old guy, so I do have to do a little back the way I kind of remember the web. There was this content web somewhere back there, I guess, with late 90s, early 2000s, and it seemed like once we got to the point, after a lot of early innovation, Netscape and Microsoft kind of climbing up the tree, you got to a point where you could make websites that generally interoperated. And if you were good, you maybe got it the first time. I did my first website in 1999, and I was just kind of naive. I just coded it for one browser, and I thought it was great. It looked really good. I was using the new CSS features, and I had some friends using a different browser, and they brought it up and said, what are you smoking? The site doesn't look good at all. Oh, really? I didn't know that. I thought write once, run everywhere. That was the dream. Well, wasn't quite the reality in 99. Maybe it's not quite the reality in 2010, but we're getting closer. But once that got to a playing field, if you're a level platform you could count on, it really enabled sort of that first content-oriented web. Well, innovation continues, and a lot of things happen to make things better. And somewhere around 2003, 2004, there was this Ajax web came out. And I say around that time frame, not because that's when the innovation that enabled it happened, but it's, at least my memory, that's when Google Maps came out. And Google Maps to me was this thing that, compared to the MapQuest site or the Expedia Maps site of the day, which was sort of everything you did, every scroll, everything was a post back, and it brought a new bitmap down. Google Maps was all different. Boy, all of a sudden you could pan that thing, you could zoom in, and just the map area changed, and it was a whole new experience. Now, of course, they applied it to Gmail shortly thereafter, and that made webmail a different experience than the Yahoo Mail or the Hotmail of the day. What's interesting is the innovation there I actually first saw in 1999 when we were just joining Microsoft as part of the Visio acquisition, and they were demoing to me this thing, Outlook Web Access. It hadn't shipped yet. You know, that's the feature of Exchange that lets you hook into your Outlook account, and it was actually very Ajax-like before the term was ever there. And it helps remind me that the innovation that powers a level happens actually over a number of years and is refined and is embraced by multiple browsers. And finally, if we can agree that the Web 2.0 or the Ajax Web was around 2004, those innovations had been knocking around for 4 or 5 years before, you know, they're both in Firefox, IE6, and it creates that stable foundation. Well, I think we're very much in that stage right now. A lot of innovation. It's certainly been exciting to be in the browser business with Google coming in and Apple innovating, whether it's from the iPhone direction or the Mac direction. Opera continuing to improve their product, and of course Mozilla pushing Firefox forward. A lot of innovation. Then IE8 improving the CSS2 and contributing the test suite and bringing that up, really getting us up to a new level. A level which we believe is going to be graphically and media rich. So when we talk about the HTML5 web, there's all these characteristics of common markup and performance, but graphical richness is a foundational piece, we believe, of the HTML5 web. And we further believe that that graphical richness demands a high-performance graphics system. In our case, we harness the power of the Windows DirectX stack, or the power of the GPU and the hardware underneath it all. And that does a couple things. You saw, again, in the demos this morning, the alpha blending that allows. All that's happening in the GPU. I mean, all the images or the partial block elements that are rendered and then mixed by opacity, that's all, literally all happening in the memory of the GPU as it blends the textures in there. And it allows tremendous high performance. Now, what that means at another level is the frame rates that you need for smooth video are possible because you're